Hello, good evening, East Africa. Good evening, everyone, wherever you are. We are back with our Saturday 8 p.m. Webinar with Mr. Hamza Junju, who is a sports administrator from the International Olympics Committee Uganda and the CEO of Express. Mr. Hamza, we are happy to have you as usual.
I'm glad to be here, as always, Saturday evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we first of all congratulate you and congratulate the viewers for having finished the previous webinars, which were very, very powerful. And we were exploring professionalism, and we saw how a sports person and everyone else can become professional. We are introducing new series with Mr. Hamza, dear viewers. We are talking about emotional intelligence. We need to know how important it is, what it is itself, and why an athlete needs to grow it. And I will leave Mr. Hamza to introduce this topic for us.
Okay, thanks. As always, we shall be introducing a number of topics which we shall be discussing in the series because we realize sport as an industry requires a number of aspects for one to be professional and to achieve your best. So today we start a series of emotional intelligence. Automatically today we shall define what we call emotional intelligence and we'll look at the traits. After understanding the traits, we shall be able now to handle trait per trait. And today we shall handle the first one, which we shall see later, which falls under self-awareness. But to be straight to the point, because we already read, people need to understand that emotional intelligence and sport move hand in hand. But all of us need to understand, first of all, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence refers to the capacity to be aware, control, and to express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships. How does this link to sport? All of us are aware sport is divided into the individualized sport, where it is one against one, like boxing, playing golf, badminton, and there are team sports, football,
Mr. Hamza,
rugby. Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, I'm hearing.
I have a comment from one of our viewers. They are saying they cannot hear you well. If you may please adjust the microphone.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello?
So what is the feedback now?
I think they can hear you now.
So I need to redefine. We are still discussing emotional intelligence. So we are saying emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware. Being aware, it can be aware of yourself, be aware of your teammates, to controlling yourself, controlling your teammates, express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships. And what I was saying, how does this relate to sport? Sport all over the world is divided into two: individual sports and team sport. Individual sport may include boxing, badminton, a number of games where you are alone. And we have team sport where we have more than one person chasing the same goal. That is like football, netball, rugby, etc. Now, the capacity to be aware, to control and express your emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships is what we call emotional intelligence. Then one needs to understand what is a sport. Sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill. We discussed the skills way back when we were starting talent. So you are using physical, which involves energy, a number of things, but it must be accompanied with a skill. In which an individual, if you are playing individual games, or a team, compete against another for results or for entertainment. That's why now today we are discussing emotional intelligence in sport. We are looking at emotional intelligence under people doing a physical activity, applying skills to attain a result or for entertainment. So those are the definitions we can discuss at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is very important to understand what emotional intelligence is and how it is related to sports. And Mr. Hamza has been very clear up to now that it is at the core of any athlete. When we talk about sport, when we talk about talent and skill, we need to understand that emotional intelligence, your ability to manage your skill, manage your emotions and handle interpersonal relationships matter a lot. And I think, Mr. Hamza, in our previous, while we were covering professionalism, we looked at social development. And this reminds me of one of the core values we talked about, because it is very important socially to be able to handle others, but most importantly, to know what is going on within you and know how to handle everyone else.
Yeah.
We have just a minute, please. We have people saying salam alaikum to you, Sebo. And we have quite a number of followers. Good evening. So thanks for joining, everyone. We are discussing emotional intelligence and its relationship to sports today. So we need to understand quite a few more definitions and go deeper into understanding the relationship between emotional intelligence and sport. So this is where we are up to now. Yes, Mr. Hamza.
But now, after understanding the definitions, it's very important to know that emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional sport success. Because remember, if you're assembling a team, it's very important to understand each and every person. And you, the leader or mentor, have to understand each and every player. It is important for every player to understand him. Sorry for that. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, please.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's very important to understand that when assembling a team, any mentor or a coach must understand the abilities of each and every player. It's the reason we are saying emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional sport success. Because if you assemble people understand themselves, their characters, their strengths and weaknesses, then success is along the way. So it's very important to understand each and every player you have in a team or in a sport. So as we said in the introduction, that we are looking at a series. Emotional awareness and intelligence has a number of traits. Remember we said emotional intelligence is the way you understand yourself, take control of yourself. So we are going to go deep and understand what emotional intelligence is all about. Emotional intelligence is divided into 4 major aspects, and these are the series we shall look at. For starters, we shall look at self-awareness. You, the sports person, the player, how much do you know about yourself? Then we shall later discuss self-management, which goes back to the definition of controlling who you are. Then later we shall discuss social awareness, putting in mind the people you are with in the team and the society. Then lastly we shall discuss social skill and sport. So these are the 4 series we shall make, because these are the broad-ending traits of emotional intelligence. But as we said today, we shall focus more on self-awareness, discovering who you are.
Okay. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Mr. Hamza. So far, we do not have any questions or any comments from our viewers. But I think as we... Yes, emotional intelligence is a big topic. I would love to caution our viewers, and they should not forget that we are discussing emotional intelligence specific to the sports person. I mean, we are attacking the whole topic from a sports person any point of view, and not in general, because we have emotional intelligence relationship to academics. We have coaches. We have our own thing of emotional intelligence. But today we are counting on Mr. Hamza's expertise to tell us exactly what should happen for a sports person, when it comes to emotional intelligence. That was just a comment I wanted to make. And I think we can continue, Mr. Hamza. Up to now, we understand what emotional intelligence is. We understand the relationship between emotional intelligence and sport and why it is important. And we understand the four uh, traits you have just told us, or we can say niches or values you need to work on, and that is self-awareness and self-management, social awareness, and finally the social skills, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So now we handle the first theory for the day, which is
Okay.
self-awareness. So here, what do we mean? We are looking at you, the player, the basketball player, the football player, rugby player, and all sports, athletics, etc. What do you know about yourself? Self-aware, self-awareness. And for starters, what is self-awareness? This is conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings. And when we relate to sport, feelings and character can be seen in a number of ways, as we shall see later. But how do you feel when you're going to train? How do you feel after training? How do you feel before match day? How do you feel during the match? How do you feel after the match, no matter the result? Now, these are things we are going to look at to help us, the players or the coaches, understand self-awareness in sport and how it relates to sport. I think that's where we shall try to discuss more. And now this brings out clear examples that will enable people to interact. Now, in understanding self-awareness, what is important is each and every player in sport must be able to understand his strengths and weaknesses. Because after analyzing your strengths and weaknesses, this eases your way to improve your performance. And to understand all this, there is a general term we use called blind spot. How do you discover your blind spots, stroke weaknesses? Because we believe after understanding your weaknesses, then you'll be a better player who will bring performance and better results. So our next phase, we are going to discuss a number of examples from the sports world that can help players understand who they are and what they need to do to improve personal performance, because we know after improving personal performance, then we attain the bigger picture of team performance.
Okay.
So now, yeah.
Please go ahead. You complete your statement.
So now I want us to go deep now and analyze scenarios or areas that help us now identify weaknesses of players which we need to work upon for the better, or how mentors and coaches can help these players understand themselves better to bring better performance, which brings better results in the area of sport, especially team sports like football, rugby, basketball, etc.
Mr. Hamza, if I may chip in just, a very, very quick statement. You talked about understanding your blind spot. Some people call it the soft spot, and most of us would not love to really explore our weaknesses. I think this is we'd rather ignore it and hide it. And how bad is this to a sports person?
You see, we normally say the more you don't work upon your weakness, you can't perform 100%. That's why we normally say that however much you're good at your strength, you must keep improving your weaknesses, because sport is becoming more scientific. And as it becomes more scientific, improvisation becomes a must. More talents are well developed nowadays. So meaning almost all teams, whether football, basketball, rugby, are almost equal at the way they assemble their teams. They have the quality of players. Now, any professional who has improved more on his weaknesses is better at improvisation. That's the difference between the so-called superstar players. Those who watch football, we can discuss Messi. He's a left-footed person, but it doesn't mean that when he's on the right foot, he won't hurt you. If you go to any other game, even if it is golf, Tiger Woods was almost a complete player. So we are saying there is no need to hide your weakness, but rather keep improving it, because we are human beings, and normally say practice makes perfect. Keep working on your weakness so that you turn out to be a complete player.
Yeah, especially the emotional weaknesses, and we call them weaknesses because they are not your strength. I mean, strongest points. However, acknowledging them is quite very important. Otherwise, you risk having an outbreak because you might have a breakdown at a certain point. You remind me of Zinedine Zidane. I don't know which World Cup was that, when he got angry all of a sudden. He's known and remembered to have been very, very disciplined, but there came a point when he had to break down.
Yeah, it was World Cup 2006 in Germany when he
Yeah,
dismantled the Italy defense.
yeah. So I believe matters of emotional intelligence and emotions, and when we talk about emotional intelligence, we're not saying that someone who is very emotional. Sometimes people confuse the two. Being very emotional does not necessarily mean that your emotional intelligence is high. Okay, the emotional intelligence we're talking about is when you can manage yourself and manage your emotions and manage other people's emotions. So just to make this clear, because I see quite a number of people have joined. Emotional intelligence is about your ability to manage your emotions, and of course, we are going to look at quite a number of things in this series, but you need to also understand that managing comes as a result of knowing and acknowledging your emotion and all this stuff. There is a good evening from Hadia, Mr. Hamza.
Good evening.
All right. Okay, Mr. Hamza, please, we may continue.
And what we need to know, we've started with self-awareness because it is stage one of being
Yeah.
able to control your emotions. Because if you
Mhm.
don't understand yourself, then managing and controlling your emotions becomes very hard. So at this point in time, we're going to look at scenario one by one. And these
Okay.
scenarios, we are going to take a game. Any game you play, any game you watch. There are
Should
scenarios
we ask
like,
should we ask the viewers if to name their games? So
no problem.
um, we we are talking our dear viewers, we are going to be taking examples, but we need you to tell us your sport. I mean, it doesn't matter if you just a fan or you actually enjoy playing the game, but you can type in the comment section the kind of game you want us to. Okay, it is important. Mona is saying it is important to know your weakness and use your intelligence to put them aside and look. Okay, this is the karate lady.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We were
she's.
two kids, and I don't know. Well,
I
let's
we,
continue
we,
with the
we
contact.
yeah, we are working on that. Um, okay, let us proceed. Football. Someone is saying football. Huda is
Okay.
choosing football.
Yeah. So normally football falls under team sport. And we're going to look at
Okay.
this scenario. All of us have seen it. Some of you have played. Always having to be coached and not putting time in your own development, in your own to develop your skills. What is important to note here is that individual training and skill development is the key to excellence. We need now to understand if you're in a situation where you're always being coached, it presents a risk. But we are saying, can you put time to your own development, to your own skill development? This will help. Why? If we have a a coach on the sideline who is never telling you what to do, normally you're affected emotionally. But rather, you, the mentors, can you give some time for these players to present what they understand, what they are good at in a game situation? It helps them control their emotions better and be prepared for any situation that requires improvisation. So if you're a player of any sport and you find yourself you're always being coached, what does it signify to you? That you've put less time in your own sport development and understanding of the game. So what does it mean to you? Start getting extra time to develop your emotions, to suit into the game so that you can express yourself more to the expectation of mentors and coaches, to the way you are assumed to have or to be able to perform. I don't know if I'm clear over that first aspect.
Yeah, you're very clear.
So
You're
whenever
very
you
clear.
find yourself that the coach is over reminding you on what to do, that is a sign that you're not ready. And normally, we know the impact on a player. He will be affected emotionally because he's not over in a game situation. You don't like a situation where someone is directing you on what to do every time. So what is the solution here? If you're the type of player and you see the coach doing this, from that day, can you go back and start working on your own development, especially in the area of understanding of the game, so that you perform to the expectations? Can you look at scenario 2?
Yeah, I would love to say just something very quick. I mean, that step
Okay.
is really very important because it is directing us to the fact that it is a skill that we can work on, developing, growing more self-awareness, growing more emotional intelligence is something we can grow. It is not a matter of genetics, and people need to understand this. And the stage I would say we are at right now in the other language of life coaching and stuff, it is usually the unconscious awareness.
Yeah.
So someone, I mean, is unconscious of their incompetence. They are just there, and Mr. Hamza has just given you a tip. If you see that your coach is really onto your neck all the time, just understand you are less self-aware. There is something you do not know, and you are at this stage where you are unconsciously incompetent, but you don't know what is happening to you or what is inside you.
Can we look at scenario number 2?
Please.
Getting far too caught up in the technical aspect of the game, neglecting the creative component. All of us undergo training, like we discussed, talent development, performance, technical wise, etc. But any player who will come out as the best player in most cases is a player who we've seen being creative. So if you keep neglecting the creative component of the game, then you can't perform to your best. I'll relate to a number of games. Team sport. All of us like Messi for one thing. Being creative. When everything has failed as a team, this is the person who will get a ball and think of the other side of life. So you are working beyond the normal technical aspects of the game. All of us today, we know the world's best sportsman, Mayweather, into boxing. He transformed the boxing sport using defensive method. He does not overbox or hit you. He defends himself more fast. You lose the energy, then he bounces back onto you. That is creativity. Thinking outside the box like we already do. That's why in all games we have an award called most valuable player. They are looking at that unique player who has been creative beyond the technical aspects of the game. Now, what does it imply to the player? Can you always go for training, but get time and develop other creative aspects of your talent so that you can stand out? If you've never been the MVP, the person who carries your team, it means you've been neglecting the creative component, which goes back to emotions. You've not yet developed emotionally aware, self-awareness of the sport you play. I don't know if it is clear.
Yeah, it is. It makes a lot of sense.
We move to scenario 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not having the discipline to work on the weaknesses. What does it imply? Working on your strength is fine, but weaknesses need to be developed so that they don't limit you. Sport all over the world is competitive. All of us may be playing the same position, but that person who has developed the weaknesses more has a better advantage to perform better. Because the more you develop your weakness part or point, the more you can improvise. In other words, can you use both of your limbs? If you're a boxer, can you use your left? I don't know, they call them North Paw and South Paw. Naturally, you may be a North Paw, but how often do you practice the South Paw? You're a volleyballer. Can you strike with the right and left hand? Sorry, spike. Can you serve with both hands? You're a footballer. How often do you use both feet? We are saying what is important. Working upon your weaknesses limits your weaknesses. Or it helps you keep improving on your limitations. And when you keep breaking down your limitations, emotionally you are self-aware. Because you realize I don't use the left, I'm working upon it. Then automatically performance keeps improving.
You have talked of something very important. One of the best ways to learn, which is repetition, practice. And I would love to correct a very famous statement: "Practice makes perfect." But now we are at in an era, and we are at a time where it is not practice that makes perfect, but practicing perfect makes perfect. I mean, if to grow faster, to develop better, like Mr. Hamza is suggesting, you need to do something right. And he has already showed you how important your coach is, because if you do not practice right, your weakness, you will not move an inch, or it will take you even longer it will drain you growing your strength. I mean, growing your weakness, and it will definitely be at the expense of what? Growing your strength even more and more. So my point is, like, it is no longer just about practice makes perfect. It is about practicing perfect. We are in an era of professionalism. If you do not know, consult the experts. Let them show you how to grow that particular skill that you're lacking, how to grow that emotional strength that you need. I just wanted to make that clear. We may please continue.
Thank you. Next aspect. Effort in training is nowhere near effort in matches. When effort in training should be higher than in matches, like you've said, practicing right makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
A match situation is different from a training situation. So we are saying, can you put more effort in a training? Because the more effort, if you put more effort in training, the match becomes easier. Put more intensity in a training session, you'll find the match easier. Practice right in a training session, you'll play right. I don't know if I'm clear. Because the
I
training avails you a chance to perfect any weakness you have. And if you keep this practicing right, by the time you play a match, you just play
Mhm.
right. Why
Yeah,
are we saying
you
all this? It helps you solve your emotional weaknesses. You'll go into a match situation ready. But where we have a situation where you train less, the higher chances that you will play less in a match situation.
Those are very beautiful insights. I mean, we win the match before we go onto the pitch. So the match is not won on the pitch, but it is won before. I mean, in the training. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then another aspect: have trouble taking your game from training ground to the match pitch and
If
not
you can come again,
understanding why.
please.
If you have trouble
Okay.
taking your game from the training ground to the match pitch and not understanding why, what does it
Okay.
mean? You find a player playing well during training sessions, but on match day does not replicate the same performance, and he doesn't know why. What does it imply? He's not yet self-aware. At this moment in time, solution is one. Ask your coaches the advice they give, work upon it. Or keep pushing your training levels to far much higher levels until the time you are emotionally ready for match days.
To me, it is actually becoming clear that sport is an emotional game, almost an emotional game. You just can't do it right if you're not aware. I don't know what you would say about that statement, but as you explain, it is becoming clear that you cannot play sport, you cannot be a winner if you're emotionally unaware and your emotional intelligence is quite still low.
In other words, emotional intelligence in sport is a game within a game. You have to first defeat the emotional battle, then you go into the physical excursion.
Wow.
Then another aspect, losing focus over smaller mistakes and not being able to get it back on track for the rest of the match. We know all games almost have umpires or referees. And these judges of the game make a minor mistake. You find yourself losing focus for the remaining part of the game. Then you are emotionally unaware or self-unaware. So can we know that mistakes are part of the game? And this must be developed within your emotions so that you're able to control and understand that the mistake is a mistake, but we concentrate on the concept of the game.
Yeah, and the issue of overly reacting to criticism is very key, especially to talented people, because they are generally or usually trapped into that self kind of righteousness that making a mistake becomes a very big blow, and even they will overly exaggerate the I mean, a simple kind of criticism, which might be even positive. So, I think personally, I have people in my life that I've seen struggle with this, and I have seen good, talented people losing their talent and not going further just because they could not bear criticism from a coach, criticism from fans, because fans will definitely bully you into thinking you're less, or sometimes they will overly exaggerate your potential. And if this is how a sports person loses it, then they would definitely lose it, and they need to work on their emotional intelligence pretty fast. There is a contribution from Sister Mona. She's saying emotional intelligence in sports helps control your emotions and create peak performance on demand by leaving out what won't help you to go on top, to help you to top. So she's like, this is the importance of emotional intelligence, and I believe she's right. Unless you would love to comment on that.
Yeah, in other words, training emotionally, and you as a player understanding your levels of emotional management in sport will help you know what to leave out and what to always push for. And when you understand this through self-awareness, then automatically your performance will peak levels.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamza, for that. There are beautiful comments from Sister Mona. I'm putting them on the screen for our viewers to benefit and all of us. We can please continue.
So we shall discuss other two aspects, then we can go into people what there is another scenario that normally happens, over insisting on perfection. Now, when you over insist on perfection, this can break you down emotionally. How? Insisting on perfection and never happen with your performance. Where you find yourself that you are always thinking you are not good enough because you've not been able to do this and that, automatically it breaks you down emotionally. And when you're broken down emotionally, performance goes down. So we are saying, don't look out for perfection. Look out for creativity and improvisation, and always enjoy what you offer on the field of sport. This will make you a better player, and you'll know that game in, game out, I keep improving my targets until the time will come, and you're able to hit peak performance, and you'll be among the best.
Mm-hmm.
Then lastly, not enjoying your game as much as you should, and not knowing why. There are scenarios we've seen. One is playing but not enjoying himself. And when you miss that part of happiness and fun by yourself with what you are doing, there are signs that you can't perform well, or you are mentally or emotionally down. So we need to first go and discover ourselves. Why don't I enjoy what I'm doing on the field of play? After analyzing all this, you become more self-aware. You'll find that by solving that, you'll enjoy yourself better, and this will boost your levels of performance into one of the best players in the sport.
Hmm.
These are
Thank you very
areas
much.
we can discuss today.
Yeah. We are 37 minutes down the road, and these are really important topics to ponder over, especially the point you've just mentioned. The last 2 points you talked about perfectionism, which is definitely a killer in many ways, not only in sport, but it kills a lot of talent, wanting to be on point all the time and not acknowledging the fact that life does not work that way. You will have some ups and you will have some downs. The other issue I really found very interesting is not enjoying the game and you do not know why. It is a very typical thing of emotional intelligence because it is a feeling. Why are you not enjoying? Because, like you remember, we talked about career and we talked about talent. Then we said in the previous episodes, like one way to know that you are in the right game, you're taking the right career for yourself, is when you enjoy what you're doing. So there has to be something connected to your emotions if you're doing anything that you're doing. Now we are looking at a football player or anyone, a sports person, not enjoying the game they are playing. Remember, playing the game, I would assume it takes a lot of energy, and you cannot really waste that energy without enjoyment. There has to be an emotional reward you're looking for, and if you're not getting it, I would uh, join my voice to Mr. Hamza's voice that you need to really go back and understand why you're not finding the games you or the game you're playing enjoyable. I think that is very powerful and a very good way to understand that there is something you need to work on. Mr. Hamza, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we will.
Yeah, that is almost episode 1. Discovering who you are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. But our major brief is 1. We need to understand more of our weaknesses and keep improving them to bring up the best sporting performance any player can put on the table. Then we shall delve more into other aspects of emotional intelligence. It will take us like the next 3 weeks. Then we submit around mid-Feb or the 3rd week of Feb.
Okay. That is going to be very interesting of a journey. And maybe to add, people might need to understand the 4 stages before you become a master at your emotion or at your game. Maybe we should remind them of the stage 1, which is unconscious incompetence. So there is a stage where you're incompetent and you're not conscious. You do not know that you're incompetent, and this is when you start to grow. This is when the or someone like Mr. Hamza makes a statement on this webinar, and you're like, like you've just discovered it, and then it means that you're advancing to the next stage, which is conscious incompetence. So you become conscious of your incompetence, and you now know what you do not understand and what you do not know, and you know your weakness. So here you're preparing yourself to grow. Now there is the most important part, which is going to stage 3, where you work harder to grow conscious competence. You're competent, but you now know you still. I mean, you if you're pulling off some kind of trick or skill, or it doesn't matter, emotional or physical, you work on it consciously. I mean, you know what you're doing. You're always remembering. I think there is the very best example to me anyway. Will give us your example, Mr. Hamza, which relates to sport. But my example would be driving. We've all gone to driving schools, and we've seen what happens. So when you are trying to drive, but you focus on everything that you're doing, you focus on the gear lever, you focus on the road. I mean, you're using your conscious mind all the time. Now, this is a stage where Mr. Hamza was talking about repetition. Do it perfect, do it right many times, then you master it. It will definitely push you to the 4th level, which is unconscious competence. So this is a stage where you have mastered everything. You've mastered your emotions, you've mastered your skill, that you no longer think about it. When it is happening, it just happens. So I just thought at this stage, or at this point in our webinar, it was important to show people that it is okay. At first, you might not know, but then you need to find out. So you become conscious of your incompetence, then you work on it through repetition and practicing, right? Like we have just discussed, so that you can definitely at the end become unconscious of your competence. So here people will be the ones seeing it, but for you, as you do it or as you handle yourself, no one will be, you will not actually be consciously focused on that particular skill or emotion. This is what I wanted to add at this point, Mr. Hamza. Are you still there? Hello. Well, let me see. Focus on the good. Sister Mona is saying focus on the good. Focus on the good. Okay. And that is very important. Racism and xenophobia in sport, this is also very dangerous, and people need to be very aware. Actually, discussing this with Mr. Hamza is making me realize that any game is more emotional than it is physical. Yes, physically we can be seeing something. Physically we shall require a certain skill, but the emotional skills are very, very important for any athlete. Sister Mona, you're making another contribution, confronting fears and inspire yourself, look forward to corrections than complaints. So we should avoid. Okay, we should avoid complaining and focus on accepting criticism, working and developing. This is very important. Don't know what's wrong with our guest, but let us try to see if we can get him back. Yeah, so that's it. Let us wait for Mr. Hamza to come back. But in general, that was the webinar. We are discussing emotional intelligence. We are discussing important stuff here. And we are saying that much as your game is more physical, but it is emotional because you're a spiritual being. And by being spiritual, it means you're emotional, just by default. And most of us, when it comes to matters relating to emotions, we try to suppress them. We try, especially in our culture. You all know what happens to the boy child. So men should be strong. Men should not cry. We do not acknowledge weaknesses, and this is we definitely tend to take this to work, take this to the football pitch, maybe to the game that we are playing, and that might definitely land us into serious trouble or even quitting whatever talent that we have. So talking about emotions is very important, but because it helps you understand your emotions, it helps you understand what you're feeling. And remember, we said at the beginning, emotions are not good or bad, so they are just emotions. What matters here is that you need to be aware. So if you fear something, if you fear criticism, if you fear you should not fight to try to turn this emotion so it might become aggressive. You instead of accepting and acknowledging your fears, you become aggressive and you lose it. Some people, losing friends is harder than anything else. They don't feel loved. So really mastering your emotions and knowing how to handle yourself emotionally is very important in everything. Today we are discussing in emotional intelligence in terms of sport, but you definitely should be relating. You have seen people break up. Marriages are failing just because people do not even know why they are angry. They do not know what is going on. And this is very important. Sister Mona, you're making a contribution here. By the way, emotional intelligence is reasoning outside the box, leaving what doesn't help you mature. This is very important. Understanding that they are just emotions, because Zuleika, what are you saying, my dear? If people judge you in what you do, and feel bad, is that part of it? Well, definitely this is an emotional matter. Okay, when people judge you and you feel bad, it is okay, but acknowledge it. Do not try to fight it. Many people baba judginga ne batandika okulowooza nti no, we should be strong and we should not accept be strong. No, I mean, it is okay for you to feel bad when people judge you. So you can be like, okay, I feel less appreciated, but that's it. You cannot go on to act further upon that. So people will judge you. At first it will hurt because you're emotional and aware, but then you start practicing to handle that. And time comes when such sort of criticism, such sort of being judged does not make that of a big impact in your life. So you should just understand where you fall right now. Where are you? Are you still someone who is very, very affected by criticism, by people's judgments? So you can start growing. The thing here is that acknowledge that there is a weakness somewhere and that you need to grow so you can get strong at that. Bizo, Huda, what are you saying? Let me see. Sheikh, you do not know You don't know what you've done for me with this topic. Honestly, you're talking to me direct. Thank you, Bizo. This is us. I believe not just you and everyone else, we are feeling the same thing. Emotions, emotions, emotions. We want to use our rational mind, but let me tell you something. Our emotional machine runs 5 times faster. Okay? So trying to reason with your emotions is very deadly. I mean, this is why you cannot keep on attempting to fight logically. So our rational mind will help us manage our emotions, but we cannot control it because we are always on a catch up. Okay, this is why it is very important to work on mastering and growing our emotional intelligence. And let me tell you something. Very intelligent people in class, people with a higher IQ, you remember them. If you try to look for them around, it is not. You might be surprised with where you will find them, because most intelligent boys and girls in school forget that there is another skill they need to grow, and that is emotional intelligence. They need to grow their emotional intelligence. Why? Because when we get out of school, it becomes a matter of it is more to do with understanding your emotions, managing them, and understanding other people's emotions and managing them. This is where success now is. So we pump our students, we pump our kids, we pump our children with a lot of intellectual matter. So we grow their IQ. But if we are not working on their emotional intelligence, the EQ, we are not benefiting them and we are not helping them at all. Because the game out here, the game outside the school, is more to do with how you can handle yourself and how much you understand yourself and how much you can really relate with others. So I can really understand this point, sisterhood. Yeah, and I am seeing quite a number of good comments here from people. Sister Muna is positive criticism is healthy. Being judged. I think this is something that is bothering a lot of people. We are judged. We are bullied all the time. Sometimes people make statements that will feel like very, very, very discomforting. Some of these criticism statements connect or hit a nerve which is strongly connected to some trauma when you were a kid. So people shall always try to make us feel sad, make us feel bad. It is just a human thing that instead of focusing on ourselves, we shall focus on others. So it is easier to complain and judge others than it is to judge ourselves. But for people who want to grow, people who want to master their talent, people who want to do this the best way, you should learn to get outside, okay, and come back inside. So make sure that you are in control. Whenever you see someone doing something that is not perfect and you think they should do better, just go back inside yourself and ask if it matters. How do you feel about it? If you're happy, then you can go further to find out why you are happy. There is a lot of content on emotional intelligence. There is a lot of books that have been written. It is something we definitely need. Just go out there, start listening to the classes, start reading, understand a little more about yourself. It will definitely help you. I'm almost closing this webinar, but I would love to see what you have written. Sister Mona is saying that you sieve and ignore. Okay, you need to sieve and ignore some. This is a later stage, of course, Sister Mona, but at the beginning it will definitely hurt. And when it hurts, you just have to acknowledge. Then after some time, you start understanding what is happening. Time comes and this kind of criticism no longer really affects you in any way. Huda, someone can say something and you feel like he or she is soaked. He has soaked you in a basin. Yeah, this will happen, but it means that you should work upon this. Ask yourself why it is actually hurting you. Understand this emotion. Go deep. Go back to the root of this emotion. Why is it hurting? And why this particular kind of criticism or being judged is making you very emotional and you're making you overreact, lose your confidence. When you discover, the good thing about emotions, when you discover why you're so much irritated or you're so much excited about something, it becomes normal because then you know it and you know how to handle this. Thank you very much. What is Nasruddin, brother? I think reading awakens more. Okay, this is right. Reading awakens your mind more because as you read, you're talking to yourself, and you are alone. You're focused. I agree with you, brother. Just for those who might not find themselves good at reading, you might be good listeners. You go and listen. Some people would prefer audio visual. Go and do that. Just learn. Of course, I think reading is wonderful. Bezos Swift, you're like, after this, I'm new and wonderful. This is great. Sister Mona is saying many Ugandans don't have reading culture, but they can listen. They have MBs now. Quite a number of good ways. This era, you can no longer give an excuse not to learn. Zuleika, what are you saying? Thank you so much, Sheikh. You really help us a lot. Thank you. You're most welcome. And thanks for following. Thanks, everyone. We have come to the end of our webinar. Please allow me to stop here as we wait for the next discussion next weekend with Mr. Hamza. We shall be discussing, let me see, we shall be discussing self-management. So we have seen what self-awareness is and why understanding that particular emotional weakness is and why working on it is important. But now we shall see the next step, which is managing it with Mr. Hamza, and we shall be, of course, we are usually all engaged in these dialogues. You, Mr. Hamza, I, myself, and we have many more upcoming events, many more upcoming webinars that we will find very interesting. Just keep tuned. I can't fail to thank you over and over because it is very important that you keep on listening and supporting this page, supporting us. That is very important. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week. Good night, Zuleika. Good night, Huda. Good night, Mona. Good night, Nuruddin. Let me see those ones who are still online. Good night, even those I have not mentioned their names. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.